Captain Hayes sat in the command chair of the HCVS Nova Dawn, watching the endless black of space stretch out before him. The ship was small compared to most military vessels, but it was built for speed and intelligence gathering, not for frontal warfare. Had commanded exploration ships for 15 years, and he knew every system aboard the Nova Dawn like he knew the lines on his own face. The crew was good. They were small in number, only 87 people total, but each one was selected because they were the best at what they did. Lieutenant Grace worked at the tactical station, monitoring sensors and weapon systems. She was sharp, always alert, and never missed anything happening in space around them. Engineer Price kept the engines running smooth from his station in the engine room. Medical Officer Dr. Green stood ready in case something went wrong. First Officer Cooper managed the daily operations and made sure everything ran like clockwork. The Nova Dawn had been exploring this region of space for 3 months now. They were far beyond the established territories, in a zone that nobody really controlled. Command called it a neutral zone, but knew the truth. Out here, the galaxy belonged to whoever had the biggest ships and the most weapons. The Nova Dawn was equipped with experimental technology that Earth had developed in secret. The pulse cannon was unlike anything the human military had ever built before. It could fire a concentrated burst of energy that was supposed to cascade through connected systems. In theory, it worked perfectly. In practice, they had never needed to use it. Stood up from his chair and walked toward the viewport. Through the clear glass, he could see the stars scattered across the darkness. Some of them had planets, some had nothing at all. Out here, humans were still learning about the galaxy. They had only left Earth a few decades ago, and they had a lot to learn about how things worked in this vast, cold universe. The communication officer, Lieutenant David Foster, suddenly looked up from his station. His face changed. Something was happening. "Captain, we have incoming contacts," David said, his voice tight. "Multiple vessels. They are moving into formation around us." Turned back toward the bridge. "How many?" 17 contacts, sir. Large military ships. They are broadcasting on multiple frequencies." Grace was already tracking the ships on her screen. She looked at with concern in her eyes. "Captain, these are vessels, Dominion. They have to be military class. Our sensors are picking up serious weapon systems." Had heard about everyone in Earth Command had heard about them. They were an ancient species in appearance, and they had controlled this region of space for over 1,000 years. They were powerful, organized, and they did not like visitors. Most of the time, they simply ignored human ships. Sometimes they destroyed them. It depended on their mood. "Red alert," commanded, "but keep weapons cold. We are not firing unless they fire first." The ship hummed as the alert system activated. Red lights began to flash along the bridge. Every crew member moved to their emergency position. The Nova Dawn went into combat readiness, but they remained peaceful, for now. The communication system crackled with static. Then a voice came through, deep and filled with what could only be described as amusement. The voice was the commander. "Tiny human vessel, this is Commander Vex of the Dominion military fleet. We have detected you in our territory. Identify yourself and state your business immediately." Press the communication button. He kept his voice calm and steady. "This is Captain Hayes of the human exploration vessel Nova Dawn. We are conducting peaceful scientific exploration in this region of space. We mean no harm to the Dominion." There was a pause. Then Vex's voice came back, and this time it was filled with obvious mockery. "Peaceful exploration? That is amusing. Your vessel is barely larger than one of our transport ships. The humans have finally decided to leave their backward planet and venture into the real galaxy. How refreshing. We will come and inspect your vessel. Prepare for boarding." Knew this could go several different ways, and none of them looked good. They were arrogant, but they were also powerful. If they decided to destroy the Nova Dawn, there was very little could do about it. His ship was equipped with advanced technology, but it was nothing compared to the combined firepower of 17 battleships. "We welcome the opportunity for diplomatic contact," said into the communication system. "We would be honored to meet your commander." Vex laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. "Honored? You are clearly not aware of how the galaxy actually works, human, but do not worry, we will educate you. All nearby vessels, this is Commander Vex. We have discovered something remarkable. Come to my position and witness this curiosity. There is a human ship here, smaller than a training vessel, trying to explore space as if they belong here. This should be entertaining." Looked at Grace. She was monitoring the growing fleet around them. More and more ships were arriving. Within minutes, there were 23 military vessels positioned around the Nova Dawn, completely surrounding them. The small human ship was trapped inside a circle of massive alien warships. "They are all connected through a central network," Grace said quietly. "All their communication systems are linked. All their weapon systems are coordinated. If they wanted to, they could fire from every direction at once. We would not last 30 seconds. Nodded slowly. He understood the situation. They were completely and surrounded. But he also understood that they were arrogant. Arrogance could be a weakness. It could be exploited if someone was smart enough to find the right moment. "Run a full system scan," said to Grace. "I want to know everything about that network, how it works, where it is strongest, where it might be weak. Give me everything." Grace began working immediately, her fingers moving across her console. "I am pulling data now, sir. The network appears to be connected through a central command hub. All the battleships are feeding information through that single point. It is like all of them are thinking with one brain." Smiled slightly. One brain. Yes, that was interesting. If that brain could be stopped, if that central connection could be disrupted, then all 17 ships would become isolated. They would lose coordination. They would become 17 separate ships instead of one unified fleet. But to do that would need to use the pulse cannon, and once he fired that weapon, there would be no going back. Everything would change. Humanity's place in the galaxy would change. Nothing would ever be the same again. Vex's voice came through the communication system again. "We are taking positions for a demonstration of our superior military power, human. Enjoy watching your final moments in the galaxy. This will be educational for your entire species once we report what we have done to you today." Looked out at the fleet surrounding his ship. He looked at his crew, working calmly at their stations, ready to do whatever he commanded. He thought about Earth, about humanity's future among the stars. He thought about what it meant to be ridiculed and threatened by a species that believed humans were nothing. He made his decision. "Lieutenant," he said, his voice steady and firm, "prepare the pulse cannon for firing. Calculate the precise targeting coordinates for that central command hub. We may only get one chance at this." Grace did not hesitate. She nodded once and began working. The Nova Dawn's experimental weapon Lieutenant Grace's fingers flew across her tactical console. The data streamed in front of her eyes, showing the complete layout of the fleet. She could see the network connections, the communication lines, the weapon systems all tied together through that central command hub. It was beautiful in a terrible way. Perfect coordination, perfect unity, and perfect vulnerability. "Captain, I have the target coordinates," Grace said, her voice calm but quick. "The central hub is positioned at grid reference 784 Mark III. Distance is 140,000 kilometers. The pulse cannon can reach it easily." Hayes sat back in his command chair. His heart was beating fast, but his mind was clear. This was the moment everything changed. Once he gave the order to fire, there would be no way to take it back. It would either be stopped or humanity would be destroyed. There was no middle ground. There was no compromise. There was only victory or death. "What about timing?" asked. "We need to make sure all of their ships are connected when we fire. If even one of them is not linked to the network, our shot will not work properly." Grace studied her screens, watching the vessels move into their positions. "The connection is solid right now, Captain. All 23 ships are feeding into the central hub, but they are performing some kind of maneuver. I recommend we fire within the next 45 seconds, or they might break formation and we lose the window." Turned to his chief engineer's station on his communication screen. "Mr. Price, what is the status of the pulse cannon?" Engineer Price's voice came back from the engine room. "Charging to maximum power now, Captain. The weapon has never been fired at full capacity before. Theory says it should work. We are in untested territory here." "How long until it reaches full charge?" asked. 30 seconds, Captain. 30 seconds and the weapon will be ready." Looked at First Officer Cooper, who stood beside his command chair. His face was serious. They had served together for 5 years, knew what this moment meant. "Whatever happens next," said quietly, "I want you to know that I trust your judgment completely. You are a good officer and a good man." Nodded. "Same to you, Captain. Let's make this count." Turned back to his communication system. He pressed the button to respond to Commander Vex. "Commander, we appreciate your demonstration, but we must respectfully decline your offer. We are leaving this region of space immediately. We mean no disrespect, but we have other missions to accomplish." Vex's laugh echoed through the speakers again. Leaving? You cannot leave, human. We have surrounded your vessel. You are trapped inside our fleet. There is nowhere for you to run. There is nowhere to hide. Your ship will be destroyed today. Your species will learn what happens when humans venture into the territories of the Dominion. Did not respond. He was watching the seconds tick away on the countdown timer in front of him. 20 seconds, 15 seconds, 10 seconds. Pulse cannon is fully charged, Price reported. Weapon is armed and ready for deployment, all systems nominal. Fire, said simply. The pulse cannon unleashed its power. Deep inside the Nova Dawn, the experimental weapon released a concentrated burst of energy. The beam shot out from the small human vessel, traveling across the black void of space at the speed of light. There was no warning. There was no flash of weapons charging. There was only the sudden appearance of a brilliant line of energy cutting through the darkness. The energy beam struck the central command hub of the Fleet Dead Center. For a moment, nothing happened, then everything happened at once. The central hub exploded in a cascade of energy. The explosion was not physical. It was electrical. It was a chain reaction of systems overloading and destroying each other. The unified energy wave from the pulse cannon cascaded through the network connections linking all 23 battleships. Communication systems failed on every vessel simultaneously. Weapons systems overloaded. Navigation grids malfunctioned. Power cores began to fluctuate wildly. One by one, the massive warships began to go dark. Their lights dimmed. Their shields failed. Their weapons systems shut down. Grace watched the data flow across her console, recording everything that was happening. 23 battleships, the most powerful military vessels in this region of space, were being paralyzed by a single shot from a tiny human exploration ship. "Oh my God," David Foster whispered from the communications station. "What did we just do?" "We survived," said simply. "That is what we did. We gave ourselves a chance to survive." The Nova Dawn sensors showed the fleet dead in space. Every ship was dark. Every ship was powerless. Some of the vessels were drifting slowly, their momentum carrying them through space with no one at the controls to stop them. Others simply hung in place, inert and silent. Dr. Green's voice came through from the medical bay. "Captain, I felt that through the whole ship. Are we under attack?" "No, Doctor," said. "We are not under attack. We just won a battle that we should never have been able to win." The communication system crackled with static. A voice came through, not Commander Vex, but someone else. Someone who sounded confused and frightened. "Unknown vessel, this is battleship designation 773. Our systems are down. Our weapons are offline. All power systems are failing. What have you done to us? What kind of weapon was that?" Waited a moment before responding. He wanted them to understand what had just happened. He wanted them to know that humanity had just changed everything. "This is Captain Hayes of the HCVS Nova Dawn. You threatened us. You surrounded us. You prepared to destroy us. We did what was necessary to protect our ship and our crew. We did not want to hurt anyone, but we will not accept being ridiculed. We will not accept being threatened. And we will not accept destruction without fighting back." For several minutes, there was no response. They were trying to assess the damage. They were trying to understand how a tiny human ship had managed to disable their entire fleet with a single weapon strike. Finally, Commander Vex's voice came back through the communication system. When he spoke, his tone had changed completely. There was no mockery anymore. There was no arrogance. There was only something that sounded like shock. "Human, I am still alive. My ship is damaged but not destroyed. I will need to make a full report to High Command about what has transpired here. This encounter has changed everything. For the first time in 3,000 years, the Dominion has faced a defeat." Nodded even though Vex could not see him. "We did not want this confrontation, Commander, but we will always defend ourselves when necessary." "Yes," Vex said. "I understand that now. You humans are far more dangerous than anyone believed. The galaxy is going to change because of what happened here today, and I suspect that humanity will have something to do with that change." Looked at his crew. They were silent, exhausted, and amazed. They had just accomplished something that seemed impossible. They had just fired one shot and changed the course of human history. "Stand down from red alert," commanded. "Maintain defensive posture, and prepare to send a priority message to Earth Command. They need to know what has happened here." The message from the Nova Dawn reached Earth Command 14 hours after the battle. Admiral Sophie Turner was in her office reviewing reports when the priority signal came in. She read the initial summary, then read it again. She had been in the military for 32 years, and she had never seen anything like this. A small human exploration ship had destroyed the entire battle fleet with a single weapon strike. "Get me the full report," Sophie commanded immediately. "And get me a meeting with the President, the Joint Chiefs, and every government leader who needs to know about this. We have maybe 6 hours before this information spreads through every intelligence network in the galaxy." Within minutes, Sophie was watching the battle footage recorded by the Nova Dawn. She saw the formation surrounding the human ship. She saw the arrogance in Commander Vex's transmissions. She saw the pulse cannon fire. She saw the entire fleet go dark. Captain Hayes appeared on the secure video channel that connected Earth Command directly to the Nova Dawn. He looked tired but composed. "Admiral said, I want to be clear about something. We did not go looking for this fight. Commander Vex and his fleet came to us with hostile intent. They were performing aggressive maneuvers and threatening to destroy our ship. We defended ourselves using the capabilities we had available." "I understand, Captain," Sophie said. "You made the right decision under the circumstances. What we need to know now is what the response will be. Do you have any indication of their next move?" "Limited," admitted. "Commander Vex has not made any aggressive moves since the battle. All of his ships are still dead in space. We are maintaining a defensive position, but we are not attacking. We have offered to assist with any injured crew members, but they have not responded to those offers." Sophie nodded. "Maintain that position. We are sending 3 supply ships to your location along with military escort vessels. Stay alert. We do not know how they will react to this. They might send reinforcements. They might send diplomats. They might do something we have never seen before. Be ready for anything." The conversation ended. Sophie walked to the Situation Room and stood in front of the star map showing the region where the battle had taken place. Somewhere in the galaxy, thousands of alien species were receiving the same information at almost the same time. Humanity had just proven that it could fight. More importantly, humanity had just proven that it could win. In the Dominion's capital world, the Council of High Command was in emergency session. There had not been a military defeat in 300 years. The council members were angry and confused. Commander Vex was transmitted to their assembly chambers through a secure video link. "Explain yourself," demanded Counselor, the highest authority in the government. "You had 23 military vessels. The human ship was tiny and alone. How did you lose?" "We underestimated them," Vex said simply. "We believed them to be insignificant. We turned our attention away from them while we arranged a display of military power. Their weapon was unlike anything we have encountered. A single strike precisely targeted at our central command network disabled every ship simultaneously. I have analyzed the data extensively. It was not luck. It was strategy. They understood our weakness and they exploited it." Counselor was silent for a long moment. "What do you recommend?" "I recommend we reassess the human threat level completely," Vex said. "These beings have had space travel for less than 50 years. They have already developed weapons technology that can penetrate our defensive systems. I recommend we establish direct diplomatic contact with human leadership. We should determine if they are a threat to be eliminated or a potential ally." The council members exchanged looks. This was not what they had expected to hear. They had expected Vex to recommend an overwhelming counterattack. Instead, he was recommending caution and diplomacy. "Very well," said finally. "We will establish official contact with the human government, but we will also increase military presence in that region of space. If humans prove to be a threat, we will respond with overwhelming force." A crystalline sphere of pure intelligence called the collective mind received the news. They did not have individual leaders. They operated as a single unified consciousness. When they learned about the human victory, they began analyzing its implications for their own security and interests. The Alliance, the largest group of peaceful species in the galaxy, convened an emergency council. Most of these species had avoided for centuries, preferring peaceful trade and cooperation to military conflict. But now, if humans could stand up to everything changed. News spread through the galaxy faster than anyone expected. Worlds that had never heard of Earth suddenly became interested. Merchants began calculating trade opportunities. Military leaders began reassessing threat assessments. Spies from a dozen different factions began planning how to approach humanity. The Syndicate, a criminal organization that had been operating in the shadows for centuries, took particular notice. They had built their power structure on the assumption that they were untouchable. If they could be defeated, then the balance of power in the galaxy was shifting. They did not like shifts in power that they could not control. 3 days after the battle, Captain Hayes received a new transmission from Commander Vex. The commander's voice was formal and respectful, not mocking like before. Captain Hayes, I am transmitting an official request for a face-to-face meeting between us. I propose we meet on neutral station Alpha 7, orbiting the moon of the Vex system. This station is known to all major powers in the galaxy. We can establish formal diplomatic relations between thee and humanity. Will you accept this proposal? Hesitated for only a moment. This was an opportunity. This was a chance to establish humanity's position in galactic society not through aggression but through dialogue. I accept, transmitted back. I will be there in 4 days with a small diplomatic team. We will come in peace, but we will not come unarmed. The Nova Dawn began its journey toward Alpha 7 station. On Earth, Admiral Turner began assembling a diplomatic team that would represent humanity's interests. The President of Earth convened a special session of the World Council to determine official policy toward thee and other alien powers. Everything that happened next would shape humanity's future for generations to come. The small human warship had changed the entire galaxy's view of humanity. Now humanity had to prove that they were not just warriors. They had to prove that they were intelligent, reasonable, and worthy of a place among the galaxy's other civilizations. Captain Hayes stood on the observation deck of the Nova Dawn, looking out at the stars. Lieutenant Grace joined him, standing silently beside him for a long moment. We did something big, Grace finally said. Something that is going to matter for a very long time. We did, agreed. And now we have to do something even bigger. We have to prove that Alpha 7 station orbited the moon of the Vex system, a structure of steel and glass that had served as a neutral meeting ground for centuries. Representatives from 100 different species had walked through these corridors. Wars had been prevented here. Alliances had been formed. Trade agreements had been negotiated. This was where the important work of keeping the galaxy from destroying itself took place. Captain Hayes walked through the main corridor toward the diplomatic chamber where Commander Vex was waiting. He wore the dress uniform of Earth's military, a simple black and gray suit that showed respect without aggression. His diplomatic team walked beside him. Doctor was an expert in alien cultures and psychology. Sarah Wilson was a legal expert who would handle any formal agreements. And Lieutenant Commander James carried the authority to make decisions on behalf of Earth Command if necessary. When they entered the chamber, Commander Vex stood to greet them. The commander was massive, almost 3 meters tall, with an exoskeleton that was dark brown and covered in patterns of scars from years of military service. His compound eyes could see in multiple spectrums of light, giving him advantages in combat that no human could match. But when he extended his appendage toward in a gesture of peace, his movements were controlled and respectful. Captain Hayes, Vex said, his translator converting his alien language into human speech. I am honored to meet with you. Your courage and tactical skill have earned the respect of the people. You should know that my people rarely respect those they have not fought. The fact that you won that fight means we now regard you as equals rather than inferiors. Shook the commander's appendage. We value that respect, Commander, but we did not come here to celebrate a victory. We came here to discuss peace and cooperation between our peoples. Vex gestured to chairs around a large table. Please sit. We have much to discuss. But before we begin, I want to explain something about culture that may help you understand my people better. We have dominated this region of space for 3,000 years. In that time, no other species has stood against us militarily. We have fought among ourselves against, but when we face external enemies, we have always won. This victory of yours has shaken our entire civilization. Some want to destroy you immediately. Some want to ignore you and pretend this never happened. But I believe a third path is better. I believe we should understand you. Doctor leaned forward. We want to understand you as well, Commander, and we want to establish formal relations between our governments. We are not your enemies. We are explorers trying to find our place in a galaxy we are still learning about. Your place, Vex repeated thoughtfully. Yes, that is what this is about. The galaxy is divided into spheres of influence, the control the largest sphere, but there are also the Alliance, the Syndicate, and many smaller groups. Each of them has territory, each of them has power. Now humanity must establish your own sphere, but the question is how you will do it. We do not wish to take territory by force, said firmly. We want to establish relations based on mutual respect and beneficial trade. We have resources on Earth. We have knowledge and technology that may be valuable to other species, but we are not interested in conquest. Vex made a sound that might have been a laugh. Every species says that initially, Captain, but eventually all species want more territory, more power, more resources. That is the nature of survival in the galaxy. The question is not whether you will want these things. The question is what you will be willing to do to get them. James spoke up for the first time. We understand that expansion is inevitable, but we are willing to follow rules of engagement that protect all species. We would be interested in joining any galactic council or organization that has established peaceful protocols. The Galactic Cooperative Council exists, Vex confirmed. It includes the Alliance, the Collective, several merchant consortiums, and various smaller species. They have never joined because we prefer independence, but if we were to sponsor humanity for membership, they would likely accept you. This would give you legitimacy and protection. It would also give you responsibilities and limitations on your military expansion. Sarah Wilson began taking notes. What would membership require? Diplomatic representation, Vex explained. Commitment to peaceful dispute resolution, contributions to the Council's security force, an agreement not to engage in aggressive military expansion. In return, you would have protection from the Council members, access to trade agreements, and legal standing in galactic affairs. The human team exchanged looks. This was exactly what they had hoped for. Membership in the Galactic Cooperative Council would transform humanity from a single warship to a recognized player in galactic politics. We would be interested in that possibility, said carefully. But first, we need to understand what is happening with your damaged fleet. Are all of your ships damaged? Are they receiving repairs? Vex nodded. The damage was extensive but not fatal to the fleet. 6 ships were completely destroyed by the cascade effect. The other ships can be repaired. It will take time, but we have the resources. The more important question is what happened to your weapon system. Was the pulse cannon designed specifically to disable our fleet, or is this a capability you have developed more generally? The pulse cannon is a general-purpose weapon, answered. But its effectiveness depends on understanding the target. We identified that your fleet was operating as a unified system through a central command network. We targeted that weakness. If you change how your command structure operates, we would not be able to use the same strategy again. Exactly, Vex said, and again there was that sound that might have been a laugh. This is what my people are beginning to understand. You did not defeat us because your ship was more powerful. You defeated us because you were smarter. You observed, you analyzed, and you acted at the precise moment when victory was possible. That is a skill that cannot be countered by simply adding more weapons. That is why I believe cooperation between our peoples would be beneficial. Over the next several hours, the human team and commander Vex negotiated the basic framework of a peace agreement and trade treaty that would formally recognize human independence and right to explore space. Both governments would establish official diplomatic missions. Both governments would agree not to engage in military action against the other, and they would sponsor humanity for membership in the Galactic Cooperative Council. When the negotiations concluded, extended his hand in the human gesture of agreement. Vex extended his appendage in the equivalent. An era had ended. An age of conflict between and humans was replaced by an age of cooperation and mutual respect. But back on Earth, things were not proceeding as smoothly. Admiral Turner convened an emergency meeting with the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Military leaders were divided on what came next. Some wanted to expand the military immediately, believing that humanity needed more warships to enforce its new position in galactic affairs. Others wanted to focus on diplomacy and trade. Some military officers were even less optimistic. We need to be careful, warned General David, the head of the Space Command. We have won successful battle, but that does not mean we are safe. There are other powers in the galaxy that we do not understand. Some of them might see us as a threat. Some might see us as an opportunity for conquest. We need to strengthen our position before something else comes at us. Sophie Turner listened to all the arguments, then made her decision. We are going to expand the military fleet, but cautiously and carefully. We will build more combat-capable ships, but we will also expand our diplomatic corps. We will pursue membership in the Galactic Cooperative Council. We will establish trade relations with every peaceful species we can find. and we will make it clear that humanity values peace but will not accept aggression. Meanwhile, in the criminal territories controlled by the Syndicate, plans were being made. They had heard about humanity's victory. They had heard about the new peace between humans and they saw an opportunity. Back on Alpha 7 station, Hayes and Vex shared a meal in the commander's quarters. The food was carefully prepared to be edible for both species. It was not delicious for either of them, but the symbolic act of sharing a meal mattered. It meant they were committed to trying to understand each 6 months after the diplomatic meeting on Alpha 7 station. Everything changed again. The Syndicate, growing desperate as their power eroded in the face of new galactic alliances, launched a coordinated attack on human installations across 3 different star systems. They destroyed a mining colony on. They attacked a trade station in orbit around. They even attempted to destroy a human research facility that was studying alien technology on the moon of a world called Theta. Captain Hayes was sitting in a command center on Earth when the reports came in. In the old days, such attacks might have been scattered and disorganized. But humans had been preparing. They had been building new ships. They had been training new crews, and they had been learning from their first battle. "Sound General Quarters," commanded. "I want every available ship mobilized immediately." They just made their second mistake. The first mistake had been underestimating humanity. The second mistake was assuming that humanity would respond with anger and vengeance rather than strategy and coordination. Within 2 hours of the first attack, a human fleet consisting of 4 combat-capable vessels and 12 support ships was moving toward the stronghold in the Zeta 2 system. Was commanding the operation from the flagship, a new military ship called the HCVS Valiant. It was bigger than the Nova Dawn, faster, and equipped with improved versions of the pulse cannon technology. With him was a crew that had been trained for exactly this kind of conflict. They had occupied the Zeta 2 system for over a century. They had built underground bases, hidden weapons platforms, and a sophisticated network of defensive stations. They believed themselves to be untouchable. They were wrong. The human fleet approached the system with perfect tactical timing. They had analyzed the defensive network extensively before engaging. They knew where the sensors were. They knew where the weapons were. They knew where the command centers were located. "All systems green," reported Lieutenant Michael Wells, the tactical officer on the Valiant. "We have surprise. They are not even fully mobilized yet." "Begin engagement sequence," commanded. What followed was not a battle. It was a precise military operation. The first volley of human weapons struck the main defensive station, overloading its shields. The second volley destroyed the command center before they could organize an effective counterattack. The third volley targeted their primary weapons platforms. The fleet responded with aggression and fury, but they were reacting to human strategy rather than executing their own plan. Humans had been studying alien warfare tactics for years now. Humans understood patterns and networks and systems in ways that many older species had never considered. Within 3 hours, 17 of the 22 combat vessels were either destroyed or disabled. The remaining 5 ships attempted to flee, but the human fleet had already calculated their escape vectors. 3 of the fleeing ships were destroyed. 2 escaped, but only because made the choice to let them go. "Hold your fire," commanded. "Let them run. They will spread the word about what happened here. They will tell their superiors that they should not have challenged humanity." The victory was complete. The stronghold fell to human forces. The criminal organization's power structure began to crumble. Other groups that had been oppressed by the saw an opportunity and began claiming territory that had been under control for years. But this battle was not just about military victory. It was about something far more important. It was about humanity proving that the first victory against the was not a lucky accident. It was about humanity proving that they could fight strategically, that they could adapt, and that they could think their way through complex military situations. News of the victory spread through the galaxy even faster than news of the first battle. Every alien species now had to acknowledge that humanity was a genuine military power. But more importantly, they had to acknowledge that humanity was an intelligent power. Humans did not fight to destroy. Humans fought to achieve objectives. Humans fought with precision and cunning. Admiral Sophie Turner received the news of the victory in a secure communications room on Earth. She immediately scheduled a meeting with the leaders of all the world governments. When they assembled, she had a proposal. We have proven our military capability, Sophie said to them. Now we need to prove that we can be responsible members of the galactic community. I propose that we officially apply for full membership in the Galactic Cooperative Council. I also propose that we establish a formal space defense academy and begin training officers from allied species. We can show the galaxy that we are not just warriors. We are builders, teachers, and partners. The vote was unanimous. Within 1 week, humanity formally applied for membership in the Galactic Cooperative Council. Within 1 month, that membership was approved. For the first time, a human representative sat at the table of the galaxy's major powers. The human representative was a woman named Brooks, a diplomat with 30 years of experience in international relations before space travel became possible. She carried herself with confidence and dignity. She represented not just Earth, but humanity's hopes for the future. At the first meeting of the Galactic Cooperative Council that included a human representative, stood and addressed the assembly. Humanity is grateful for this opportunity to join this council. We recognize that great powers have great responsibilities. We commit ourselves to maintaining peace, pursuing justice, and cooperating with all species for the benefit of all civilizations. We have learned that strength without wisdom is destructive. We have learned that power without compassion is empty. We will use our strength and our power to build something better for all life in this galaxy. The representatives from the Dominion, the Collective, the Alliance, and dozens of other species acknowledged the speech with formal gestures of respect. Humanity had arrived. Humanity had been accepted. Humanity had claimed its place among the stars. 3 months later, Captain Hayes stood on the observation deck of the Nova Dawn. The ship had become something of a symbol. It was the vessel that had started everything. It was the ship that had proven humanity's worth. It was being preserved as a historical monument, a reminder of the day everything changed. But for now, it was still in service, still exploring the vast reaches of space with its original crew. Lieutenant Grace stood beside, looking out at the stars like she had done so many times before. But now the stars meant something different. Now they meant possibilities rather than dangers. "Do you ever think about what would have happened if you had chosen differently?" Grace asked. "If you had ordered the ship to run instead of firing the pulse cannon?" "Every day," admitted. "Every single day. There are millions of versions of history where that choice went a different way. In some of them, we all died. In some of them, we ran and Earth sent reinforcements and we eventually had a war anyway. In some of them, the destroyed Earth in retaliation. But this is the history we created. This is the version where humanity stood and fought and won." A communication came through on the ship's system. It was Admiral Sophie Turner on Earth, calling from the military headquarters. "Captain Hayes," Sophie said formally, "I am honored to inform you that you have been promoted to the rank of Admiral. You will now be commanding the entire human space defense fleet. Your first order of business is to oversee the construction of 5 new capital ships and the training of a unified space military force. Congratulations on your promotion." Took a moment to process what had just happened. 6 months ago, he had been the captain of a small exploration vessel. Now he was being asked to lead humanity's military presence in the galaxy. "Thank you, Admiral," said. "I accept the promotion, but I want to be clear about something. The strength that got us here was not just military strength. It was the willingness to think differently, to adapt, to find solutions that others did not see coming. I want to build a military force that values those qualities as much as it values weapons and tactics." "That is exactly what we need," Sophie agreed. "Build it however you think is best. You have the resources and the authority. Make it something we can all be proud of." The communication ended, looked out at the stars again. The journey was far from over. In many ways, it had just begun. Humanity had entered the galactic stage with force and intelligence. Now came the harder task of maintaining that position and building relationships that would benefit all species. The nova of humanity's rise across the galaxy had just begun to shine. The future was bright, full of possibilities and challenges that no human had faced before. But humanity was ready. Humanity had proven it could stand against overwhelming odds and emerge victorious. Now humanity had to prove something even harder. Humanity had to prove it could be wise. The Nova Dawn continued its journey through space, no longer a tiny, insignificant vessel in a vast galaxy. Now it was the flagship of a species on the rise. Now it was a symbol of what happened when intelligence, courage, and determination came together to face the impossible and win. Hayes smiled, knowing that this was only the beginning of humanity's story among the stars. There is one thing I still do not understand, Vex said as they finished eating. Why did you not simply flee when you saw our fleet? Your ship was faster, you could have escaped. Looked at the commander directly. Because our presence in the galaxy is going to be defined by how we respond to challenges. If we had run, every alien species would have known that humans could be bullied and intimidated. If we fought, every species would know that humans will stand and defend themselves. I chose to stand. And that choice has changed everything, Vex said. You have given humanity a future in the galaxy. Use it wisely. Belongs out here. Not because we can fight, but because we can think, we can adapt, and we can coexist with other species in the galaxy. Grace nodded. The respected our strength, but respect and peace are not the same thing. That is what we have to figure out now. The Nova Dawn continued its journey through space toward its historic meeting. Humanity had announced itself to the galaxy. Now came the difficult part. Now came the diplomacy that would define whether humanity would be seen as a threat or as a new hope for peace in a galaxy that had known far too much conflict. The Nova Dawn had entered the galaxy as an insignificant vessel, barely worthy of attention. Now, with a single moment of courage and technological innovation, humanity had announced itself to the galaxy in a way that could never be forgotten. Came alive, humming with power as it prepared to change everything.